Welcome to Market Buzz. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician and host of the Market Buzz. Each show we do a deep dive into different industries using weekly charts to see what is happening on a long time frame. Please follow me on Twitter at Schnell Investor, and you can also find my blogs on gregschnell.com as well as stockcharts.com. So what we have is a couple of different groups I want to cover off, really opposite ends of the spectrum. One is will gold fold, and the other is will aerospace fly. And the reason that I want to look at gold, it has quite a few names with high scooter rankings, but the charts don't seem to be going anywhere lately. A few are making new highs. And then aerospace has been beaten down, and I continue to see more and more pressure going on in the South China Sea. So it makes me wonder if these are going to start to ramp up at all. And then if you're ever interested in any of the work we do on gregschnell.com, you can always send me an email at info@gregschnell.com, and I could send you a summary of a newsletter or whatever, but you can head over there and walk around the website, see if there's anything there for you. Okay, let's jump into the chart. So first thing I want to cover off is where we're at. So this is as of Tuesday's close, and what we see here is the market has been basically since the run-up on the prior Monday, we've been working our way lower, and we continue to hear whispers of stimulus, but we haven't seen any yet. Now, I'm just going to click on this chart here to get into it, and then I'm going to widen it out a little bit. Or we'll just add 4 months to it or whatever. And the idea being you can see that the rate of change tends to stay positive for most of the time. We're starting to get down into this danger zone here where it doesn't seem to really have enough momentum. We're starting to fall apart. PPO is still high enough. I'd like to see a bounce right in here. So perhaps we'll get something that will make that happen. On the daily chart, what we can see is we're just rubbing sideways. We've continued to test this September high and then have gently pulled back away from it. What I don't like is the downtrend on my PPO, and it looks to me like it wants to roll over and go below zero, so that wouldn't be very good. And on the daily chart, you see that this setup looks very similar to the 2018 setup where we spiked up, pulled back, ran up for a few weeks, couldn't get momentum, and then pulled back again, and then went on a bit more of a run. So I don't know if that's what we're coming into, but it definitely so far is a failed test of the high. And this week we're making lower lows and lower highs. So none of that is particularly what we wanted to see if you're in favor of being a bull. Okay, so I want to jump into the gold mining names, and I've got a whole bunch of different ones here, but the big thing to see is notice how many of these have a scooter ranking up in the 90s, and that's very, very solid, and we have to get all the way down here to get to 75, so I don't want to get too bearish on the area, but for a lot of these stocks, they haven't gone anywhere in 3 months. It was early August that some of them topped out. So it's kind of why aren't they getting any more push to the upside? And so I've set up this chart list over here on the side. And when you look at this, these are in the order of scooter ranking here, but not here. So I'm going to quickly adjust that. And really, it's just this quick. So we're going to go over to edit mode. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and we're going to select them all. And we're going to remove the numbers from them and just say OK. And then we're going to go in here, and we're going to go to summary mode. And again, we want to sort it based on the scooter ranking, so we're just going to press that. Then we're going to shoot to the bottom and just hit number in sorted order. And now it's going to put them in the strongest stocks first. So when we go look at these charts, and again, the idea being here, we'll just look at them in a 10 per page mode. But you can see this capstone, that's a pretty nice move. It hasn't done much since the middle of September, basically sideways. It's been trying to break through that. So we'll see if it's got that. But what we see here is this downtrend in momentum hasn't really been able to turn up and spike higher, and that's what we'd be looking to see. Here's Taseko Mines again. Just sideways for the last month or two. We're marginally above where we started September. Aura Mines, this one had its highest day back in August, and it's down for about 2 months now. And you can just see the PPO momentum just continues to drift lower. Doesn't mean this thing can't finally turn and go higher. It's right at the 100-period moving average, but it would need to do that relatively soon. New Gold, this one just keeps working its way higher. This is the Canadian listing. And then International Tower Mines, you could see, made it up there in July and then has just come to relax. Nothing really going on. Wouldn't take much, but we'd want to see some sort of a volume shoot push this up. iShares Silver Trust topped out in early August, and again, this kind of 2-month decline. A lot of people have been hopeful that we started to turn up here, but see how our momentum is below zero, and it just doesn't seem to have the power to push back up. So during the uptrend, we were well above zero, and we just haven't got that going right now. For this physical silver shares, this is just another ETF. Maya Gold and Silver, this one's breaking out to new highs as we speak, so that's really nice, giving us a nice push to the upside. So that's one that's pretty interesting here. Fortuna Silver, you can just see nothing really since July 27th, and here we are in end of October, will be 3 months from that. It hasn't really done anything in that whole time frame. Silver miners, just generally tending down. I'm not going to stop at too many of these that have the same thing. DB Silver Fund, again, same sort of price action, junior silvers. El Medine Minerals, really choppy, still up okay near the prior highs, $1.40, though we're sitting at $1.20. But you can see it's been a nice bottom left to top right chart. New Gold, this is the U.S. listing, and again, just keeps working its way higher. I wondered if this dog would ever bark or if it would go bankrupt, and now it's doing okay. Avino Silver and Mines continuing to just drift lower. Sprott Physical Trust. Here's gold mining. This one starting in the top in September and pulling back for 6 weeks. Again, nothing really tremendous going on there. The Silver Bull Plus, so this is 2 times up and down, but it topped out at 29, sitting around 18, so it's a bit of a pullback when you're using the 2X. Endeavor Silver, this one, topped out on the 27th of August and just gently winding down here. I do like the fact, so one of the things I like to look for is on this chart, what I want to see is this momentum change. I want to see this start to turn higher, and back here when this started to break down, it wasn't a bad place to get out. Let's just pick PPO breaking through here. So you're right in around here, 5 1/4 sitting at 450. It would have saved you 75 cents, but because of the length of this trend line, didn't really get you out at this sudden bursting top, but you had to feel like it was a little far over when you see that we were having 10% pops in here, 10%, 10%, 10% kind of moves. Okay, just going to get back into our 10 per page mode. So China International Resources Corp, just same thing, topped out mid-September, pulling back gently. Again, these don't look broken, but they're just not doing great. So the real question is, are they going to stay below zero? And if so, this would be a problem. So here you have a trend line that you draw across this peak, and here we want to see if, after it goes below zero, one of the things I like to watch for is that could potentially mean the next rally is your final high. Doesn't have to be, but a lot of times you'll see that the momentum got so weak it got below zero, and on the next rally just couldn't muster anything up, and then it continues to fall down. So you want to always at least be aware when you're starting to see momentum waves go below zero. Now we've got this big uptrending line hitting around the 100-period moving average. You pull back, and now we're struggling to get above it. So here this green Keltner channel was support, and now it's resistance. The real question is, can it get back through, or does it start to fall away? Silver Corp metals starting to fall below again. Tuesday tried to move a little bit back up. And again, you've got a downtrend in momentum here. If that can start to break to the upside, that would be a little bit more bullish. And Argonaut Gold, again, making our highs back here in August. So you see a repetitive theme here. Midas Gold, they're dripping. This was $2. It's down to $1.10 this on Tuesday morning. That's not very strong. And then Rox Gold made its high mid-September. Nothing wrong with the chart. It's still bottom left to top right. It's held the Keltner channel all the way up. You just want to start to see it break down here. Mag Silver Corp briefly tried to push up a week or so ago and then fell back down. Nothing really great. So one of the things, this is a good example actually, let me go here. One of the things I want to watch for on this particular chart is just this momentum wave here. You can see it's making lower highs. And what we want to watch for now, see how it touched zero, bounces up, stalls, comes down, tries to touch zero again, or does, and then stalls again. So the real question is, here we had some nice big momentum. Now all of a sudden we have no mo. And the question is, do we just start to roll down? And if we do that, that's a real problem for us, because that's kind of how you see the chart breaking down. Basically, the momentum starts to fade first. And then the chart, although putting in a recent high, again, keeps touching zero here, suggesting not much left in the tank. Whereas investors really wanted it, they would keep the momentum wave above that zero level. Coeur d'Alene Mines goes all the way back to early August, and again, just a gentle downtrend. Looking at Eldorado Gold, nice. Last week surged up to a new high and then gave it all back already. Again, here we go, running that trend line across the tops of these. We're right at it. And this dip below zero was pretty significant, ran up, came back down, so I probably would have been a little cautious here as this starts to break down. We're doing it again. I don't know if it's going to have a second chance. Dundee Precious Metals, sideways. I think that's fair from July. Not really doing a whole bunch. Looking in on Premier Gold Mines, what we see here is just, again, a lot of choppy price action for the last 3 or 4 months. Momentum indicator continues to drift lower. Don't want to see it roll over here and go below zero. If it starts to turn up, that's the natural place that we would look. But again, if you're in an uptrend and you pull back and now you start to rally from below zero and then you start to fail up here, that can usually mark a final high. Now, it doesn't mean it's higher than the previous highs or at the previous highs. It can be lower, at, or higher, but when your momentum wave fails to get anything going and then starts to move into negative territory, probably means your chart's going lower. Golden Star Resources, again, same thing, just 3-month pullback. Van Eck Junior Gold Miners, 3-month pullback. Savannah Silver, same thing. When we get to one of these charts here, I want to jump into it a little bit. So this is the silver bullion, and the reason I want to just click on this chart and go look at a few things here. So here's the weekly chart, and we had this massive spike, and so now we run up and we're holding in here, and everybody's bullish because we've had the spike, and so they just assume that we've started the big uptrend. What we don't know is if this is just going to roll down, and so that's why we're so cautious here. We want to make sure that this finally gets going. Now, one of the traits that, if we look through this chart in detail, this is the only wave where we came back down to the 50 and bounced up. And when we did that, that was part of a big uptrend. And then what you'll notice is we fell below, and then we kept rolling over. This is one where we turned up while still above the 50, but all the other rollovers have taken us all the way down to the bottom. Just not a great chart. And again, in a bull market, these usually turn up around 50 instead of fail around 50. So we're at one of those indicative points on the full stochastic. And then, and what does a stochastic do? It measures where the price is relative to the last 14 weeks. But it also takes an average, so it'll never drop down to zero and say it's right at the very bottom. But in this case, what happens is it goes down here, it says it's closed. The range from 6.11 to 9, call it $10. So from $6 to $10, where are we? Well, we're in the, call it 660 range. So you're in the bottom 20% of that move. So it averages the last 3 and gives you a calculation for that. Now, the point I want to make here is, just being at the bottom doesn't mean it's bearish. What you want to see is it's turning back up, and that's probably more likely when you want to get on board. Now the question is, as it rolls back, the question, are we going to have to wait and see it go all the way back down and we end up in this downtrend, or can it finally turn and start making higher highs and higher lows? The reason we're so focused on it now is because it's starting to underperform in relative strength compared to the S&P 500. It's been downtrending for 3 months here. We want to see if it can finally break out. Hopefully that made a little more clarity as to what we want to see from the chart. So here's Rubicon Minerals, made its high in July, gently pulling back. And again, they're not really thumping hard, but they have pulled back and are grinding sideways. And so we keep looking to see if there's going to be a little bit more price action. But so far, last week it looked like it was going to start to go and then rolled over and hasn't really been able to maintain that upward momentum. Again, here you have a lower highs, lower lows, and we're coming in on this range where if this was going to start to roll over, could be a bigger problem. Now, let me just click on this chart quickly. And the idea being, let's open the tape up for 5 years. And, for the most part, when you're in the uptrend, right, this is very bullish, and that's what you want to see. We're on the daily chart, so what we're looking for is just what happens when the MACD or the PPO starts to turn up. And in this case, as it turns up here, that's a nice place to get on board. And these turns are relatively close to the bottom. We've zoomed out quite a bit here, so we can't really look at it specifically like that. But the one point I would say is we were trying to turn up here, so we rallied, had a really nice pop, right, for 5 or 6 days, and now we pulled back down. And the real question is, if we're going to start going below zero, that's a pretty cautionary place that we don't want to pay attention to, or we don't want to be involved. So here we see all of 2018, PPO stayed below zero, and that's a problem. Kept getting up to zero and then rolling back over. So if that's what's going on right now, that's not good. And if we are about to break this big downtrend and start our next leg higher, this is a pretty interesting place to get on board, because we're just breaking the downtrend and starting to move up. If that's going to work for us, then this is not bad. So we had the sudden surge, a pullback, and perhaps you want to get it on the next leg. Let's just go back to the previous chart. And so as we've gone sideways here and this momentum indicator is wavered below zero, just try and stay in tune with it and see if it's ready to start to pop to the upside. Okay, so the bottom line I wanted to show you was, this has been a great stock, but so far it's setting up a left, a head, and perhaps a right shoulder. We've got declining tops here. If your right shoulder is rolling over right around zero, that's kind of normal. That's kind of how topping structures are built. What we want to see here is, can this actually start to turn higher again? And we're sitting right around the 100-period moving average, so let's not throw it in the garbage yet. It's a pretty strong stock. And then if it can hold up, we'll just see if it's going to go anywhere. I usually use weekly charts. The reason I wanted to use the daily on the gold charts here, they've been running for 1.5 years and we're up near the top, but we've been pulling back for 3 months and they're starting to underperform on many different fronts. So that was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to hit it specifically. And again, if this can't hold this 100-period moving average and starts to make lower highs and lower lows, that we're in a downtrend, not an uptrend. So watch closely. We'll see if that's going to change. Okay, over here I've got the aerospace and defense, and I just want to make sure, do I have Boeing in here? Yeah, I do. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that as we go look at these stocks, notice how few of them, so on the gold ones, over here, lots of them were in the 90s on the scooter ranking, and that's like a sports ranking for stocks. And when you're up near the top of the list, you're outperforming most of the other stocks in terms of price action. So here we sit with the defense stocks, and only one is in the 90s, only two are in the 80s. And then we have a grouping in here. But when we get down to some of the bigger names, so here's Airbus, it's at the 50% level, and when we just flick on the chart, you can see not a lot of momentum, right? And here's Ruger, like this chart ran up beautifully all the way to the late July, early August, and then pulled back hard, dropped roughly 30%. And now it's trying to rally again. So when we look at some of these names, here's Boeing down here with a 25%. So very quickly we went from 50 into the 25s. And we see some of the bigger names down here, United, Lockheed. And what we want to see on those charts, let's just go to whatever, Lockheed, just to pick a name. What we see is this chart hasn't done much, so it fell. It's trying to rally. It's going sideways. And then what did we do? This on Tuesday, we literally fell apart, and this is making 3-month lows here. That's not the price action we want to see out of these large caps. And again, if they're going to start breaking down hard, it makes me wonder, because the South China Sea is getting pretty tense over there. China's told their military to prepare for war. India, Australia, Japan, USA are all running coordinated drills up through the South China Sea between Taiwan and China. So China's not happy about that. So there's some tension there, but so far nobody's really reacted to it, and I wonder if these charts can finally start to break out. You know, this sort of price action doesn't look great. Remember on that chart over on under the gold names, how we just saw the PPO getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Well, what we don't want to see is it gets weaker and then all of a sudden it starts to go kerplunk to new 3-month lows and continues to migrate lower. So with that, I'm going to quickly change the view on this chart to weekly. I'm going to apply it to all the other stocks in the group, and the way you do that is just apply style to all and just change that. Okay. So now we want to go to the top of the list and look to see if there's anything performing strongly, and Smith & Wesson brands are here. So what we've got is we had a big multi-year downtrend, started to break out in July, ran up, pulled back, full stochastic near the bottom of the range for the last 14 weeks, and then if this could start to turn up again, that's a better place to get on board. Roughly 14 weeks is just a little bit longer than 1 quarter, right? 13 weeks per quarter. And now let's go to view all mode. Okay, so looking down here, here's cubic, and it hasn't done much. You had a high back in 2019, fell down. It rallied like kind of in 2 sudden spurts and then doesn't do much after. So this one's just kind of sitting there so far. Axon Enterprise, this one just broke out to new 52-week highs. I like that. Chart starting to turn up. PPO on its most recent high made a higher high, so that suggests to me the trend is still happy. VSEC, this one, you can just see the downtrending line here, and we're trying to break through that. If we don't break through it, I would just expect it to roll over. We'll see if it's got any more heartbeat. Here's TransDigm, and again, these are the better charts. See how they compare differently to the gold ones. Anyway, running up, but not with much aggression after the COVID low. Kratos Defense, this one's been sideways for a long time. I know a lot of people were trying to buy it on this push up in early September, but the issue we've got here is a horizontal ceiling, call it at $21. And until the stock can meaningfully get through that, you just need to be careful that it can actually accelerate out once it gets going. Heiko, same thing, we're sitting right at around a $100 barrier. Aero Environment, just sideways again, nothing really going on for 2 years on that stock. Heiko I already had. Moog. On this one, I like the fact that it's above the 40-week moving average, but again, this looks like it wants to roll over here, and it hasn't really had a lot of drama. And I would just say that even before COVID, it didn't have much momentum. It was sideways for 2 years, so perhaps it's just better to let that one go. Okay, Storm Ruger, again, push up, pull back. EDC, this is Airbus. A lot of the companies are going to park their A380 jets, so even though they can hold lots of people, just with the lack of people flying, that's part of it. I thought they might use it as extra space on board, but so far these are not looking quite ready to rally, so this one's continuing to live below its 10-week moving average. CAE, this is for training on the navigation systems and stuff. Well, if we're going to come out of the Boeing 737 MAX lockdown and start to train people, perhaps this is the place to get on board. And you can see last year when the chart was breaking out to new 52-week highs, I think it was in February the problems originally showed up. And then we had some sudden surge, didn't do much, made a sudden surge to start the year, ran up to $31 and then fell. So if you weren't on board for the move up that week or that week, you probably aren't going to make any money in this stock. It's been sideways since those. And then Over here, we're just starting to break out here, so this looks like a relatively nice entry with your stop just tightly below at the 10-week moving average, and if it can take off and hold, that's bullish. AAR, nothing going on. Teledyne, nothing going on. This one gets a lot of press attention, but you could just see we're kind of stuck below this 385 level, and until we start to get something better in terms of price action, it looks like it's just destined to stay there. Textron continuing downtrend. And with that, the PPO looks like it's rolling over at zero here. I like the fact it got above zero, which was higher than anything in the last 2 years. Perhaps it just pulls back gently and then starts to turn up, but it would need to do that relatively soon. Triumph Group, not much liking there. Here's Boeing, same sort of chart. And again, grinding sideways. You could just see getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Now that we've got that tightness, we could call that a Bollinger Band squeeze, where the volatility is coming in and then all of a sudden it pops to the upside. I'm just going to go click on that chart, add the Bollinger Bands, put it in there. And so what we see here, see how they were so wide and then they've narrowed down. They're still quite wide, but definitely getting closer. And as that starts to pinch together, then we'd expect them to take off. So look what happened back here. We had this really tight volatility squeeze. We see this in crude oil today, where you go long periods with just a really tight period, and then it broke out and it just couldn't wait. It just kept going and going and going. Okay. One more. And RBC Bearings continuing to drift lower. Nothing really exciting. Vectrus continuing to drift lower. General Dynamics, nothing really dynamic about this chart, below both its 10-week and 40-week, and dropping this week. So making lower highs and lower lows on each rally. UTX pulling back, nothing really happening. Sideways price action for 4 months. The moving average is just horizontal. BAE Systems, again, same sort of thing, pulling back, waiting, and can we finally get this to turn up above zero and give us a real rally? That's a good question. Lockheed Martin, sideways, and just starting to break down again with our Bollinger Bands. That would be getting pretty darn tight, and as you get into that volatility squeeze, we want to watch, and then when it finally starts to pop out of there, that would be comforting. You can see the PPO has rolled over to give us a sell signal right now. Curtiss-Wright Corp, triangle, pennant pattern, and we want to see, which way it's going to break, and if it does break down, that's pretty bearish, actually. Elbit Systems, nothing going on for 3 or 4 years. I don't see a reason to add it today. Hexel Corp, trending lower still, nothing to really like. Mantech International, nothing. And Fluor Systems, again, one of the bigger names out here, migrating lower again. None of these have started to turn up yet. When they start to break their trend line on the PPO, I start to get a little more interested. Just want to see if it can actually start to rock onto the upside. But we're not quite there yet. And if it does, that's kind of one of the things that I like to look for. So if you're interested in aerospace, not so much. If you're interested in gold, there's still some good names, but we are waiting for the chart to turn and confirm to make it another Top Gun move. Thanks for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. You can also see the recordings on the StockCharts TV YouTube page, and you can also find my articles on the U.S. and Canadian markets. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're going to bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.